I call this meeting of the MSAD 49 Board of School Directors to order. Roll call. Bouchard. Here. Booton here. Brownwood. Haverly. Davis Folsom. Dumont is unable to make it this evening. Hashi. Here. Hussey. Knowles.
Here.
Lambert. Mishu. Here. White.
Here.
And William. All right. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the January 6, 2022 school board meeting? Been moved by Ray, seconded by Neil, to accept the minutes of the January 6, 2022 school board meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 7. Opposed? 0. Abstain? 2. Citizens' input? Moving on, old business. New business. Health and safety.
I'll just briefly talk about the SOP's recent revisions. I think I've sent them to the board, and they're published online, they're published on our site. One of the more significant changes in the whole purpose, I wouldn't say the whole purpose, but in part of those adjustments for the main CDC to adjust the standard operating procedure for schools is to keep children in school and keep our school building staffed so we can offer our programming. And one of the things that we are no longer needing to do is put students out when they become identified as a close contact and asking them to quarantine from school as well. And if you'll notice on our website that chart, we had some pretty high numbers, over 1,000 for quarantines, and that includes students and staff. So we are no longer required to do that, and that's very helpful. And also, as you're aware, COVID positive quarantining requirements have been reduced to 5 days if you are symptom free, and you may return. Also, even if you have COVID positive people in your household and you're exposed that way, you may still report to school as a student or a staff member. One of the other burdens that has been lifted, especially from our school nurses and our school administrators, is that contact tracing and notification. So we were still, for a little window, having to notify families that your child was a close contact. Sadly, I think we're working on the assumption that you are exposed, and whether you contract it or not is to be determined, or you present symptoms or not is an unknown thing. But that really alleviated a very heavy burden on our school nurses. We are continuing with our pool testing as long as that supply can be maintained, sustained. And we have had some positive pools. I think we had a bit where we were, there was a little bit of delay on the delivery of our follow-up tests, but those came in time to address. I think it was the Albion school that had some positive pools. The other piece that came out most recently was the clarification, and I think I had mentioned it in the last meeting, the the mask mandate and what is universal masking in the SOP, the department and the CDC has defined that as all school-sponsored activities. And I wrote to you all about that, but that means that it extends to athletic competition or co-curricular activity, any school-sponsored student activity. Students are required to wear the masks. We had, and I'm thinking of how this affected, say, basketball, we had generated a protocol whereby students, unless they were competing on the court, had to wear a mask. When they were on the court competing, they didn't have to. And then we would honor an opponent's district-based requirements. So say we played a team where the mandate was already in place, our athletes would mask up. So right now, the DOE has clarified that, and we're masking for all activities except for swimming. So anything but that. And I smile because the deputy commissioner, clarified that today at our usual Thursday meeting with the Kennebec Valley superintendents. Those are my updates for health and safety in regard to the SOP. However, talk a little bit about how we're experiencing, as I think the community at large, a spike in cases. There was a point where for months we wouldn't have hit this threshold that we're now hitting in a week's time. So for example, from January 1st to January 13th, in our weekly reports, just to give you these numbers, a total of 79 district-wide student cases for that period of time, 30 at the high school, 15 at the junior high school, 5 at the primary, 14 at Clinton, 9 at Benton, 2 at Albion. And those are the reported cases, though, and we're relying on families calling and telling us that they have tested positive. Staff district-wide, we had 12 in that period of time from the 6th of January to 13th. And having at Albion, we had 5 at Benton, 4 at Clinton, none at primary, 1 at junior high, 1 at the high school. This period of the 13th of January through the 20th, today, we have 106 student cases. This is going to be published up on the website as Friday morning, but just to review it so you can see the bump up. 4 at Albion, 9 at Benton, 24 students at Clinton, 4 at primary, 19th at junior high, 46 at the high school. And at this time. So that's where we're trending. Staff appears to be 12, as was reported at the last cycle. 0 at Albion, 3 at Benton, 2 at Clinton, 1 at primary, 1 junior high, 5 at the high school. In a recent iteration of the SOP, we talk about outbreak status, and I talked to you recently about the CDC wanting the information of out due to illness, staff, students, and if we crested the 15% threshold of all souls on board in the building, we would have to make a report to the CDC. We haven't hit that yet. We've come close, but aside from that, irrespective of that, we need a certain number of staff to operate our buildings, and we are approaching tipping points for that. So I wanted to just prepare you for a scenario like a winter storm blows in and we have to, close the school building. We may have to shift to remote on any given moment in a building, one building, or maybe it's district-wide if it affects transportation. I think last week Scott had a situation, 5 drivers were out, 5. But thanks to Scott driving the bus himself, and even we have a principal who's volunteered who is a CDL, Mr. Wedge, said he would step up just so we can keep this operation going. I'm going to have Scott talk about our contingency plan for these scenarios. The goal always is to keep the schools open and allow children access to their programming, and it's how teachers do their work best in that context, and how students learn best, we know that. So I want to just mention the monumental effort that all staff in the school are making to ensure that's happening. This is covering, I don't have a planning period today, I'm gonna grab something quick to eat, and it's all hands on deck. And I think that's, consistent across schools, but I just wanna thank our staff for all their work. Our principals are scrambling around, covering themselves, and I want, you to just have an appreciation for what it's taken to stay open through this week. And I'm, in spite of that, we still may encounter a situation in the school or district-wide where we can't run the operation. It'll be temporary, as I explained to you in the email, brief, hopefully not a long duration, but having a shorter quarantine period, even for those afflicted, is helpful, and that's all part of the thinking. Admins, we meet on Tuesdays, and we just, went through the buildings of where the schools were at that point in time. High school had nine out staff, I'm just talking staff, 8 at the junior high on that day, 5 at Benton, we had 5 at Clinton, a couple at Albion, 1 at primary. But, it's moment to moment. But I credit our staff for working so hard. And Scott, would you mind taking a minute to just talk about bus run contingencies if we're down some drivers? Thank you.
So basically, what I did was try to prepare for different scenarios. So the ladies in the office would know if we're in, so I broke it down to like 3 stages. Stage 1 basically is if we have 1 to 5 drivers out, which we're pretty much always in stage 1, I guess. Basically that would mean I have 1 substitute bus driver currently. I have 2 support staff workers who are not assigned to a bus run every day. So I basically use them as substitute float drivers. And I have 2 custodians that have the bus license, and that gives me 5. Stage 2, we have 5 to 7 drivers out, which we've been in that for close to 2 weeks now. We'll call in the secretary, one of the secretaries in the office. She will come in early, and the other secretary in the office used to have, drive bus every day, so she has a bus driver's license still, and she'll drive and I will drive. It'll also could mean having the elementary drivers that don't have a bus, secondary bus run in the morning. They'll chip in, help with high school. That is basically where we're at right now. We kind of are in stage 3 a little bit as well, which I'll talk about in just a second. So if we're in stage 3, that means we have more than 7 drivers out. We don't have more than 7 drivers out right now, but we have multiple bus monitors out as well. And by law, we have to have them on the buses or vans. So I have drivers right now as bus monitors to cover those positions. That's why, the lady in the office right now, she's been a bus monitor every morning, basically for 2 weeks, and I've been driving bus almost every day in the last couple of weeks. So stage 3 is basically that. Stage 3 is probably going to mean consolidating runs. If we have more than 7, it's basically not just 7 drivers, it's 7 staff members in transportation. We probably have to, more than likely, double run, which means if there's 4 drivers in buses in Clinton, we only have 2 drivers that day. Those drivers might have to do their run, drop off at school, go right back on the road and do another driver's run. Hope it don't get to that. With the amount of students that are, quarantined at times, we can kind of consolidate bus runs. The run I did this morning had 12 kids on it because of the amount of students that weren't going to school. So, we have some leeway there right now to, certain occasions, one bus driver could almost absorb 3 bus runs, depending on how many students are out right now, so. And if that happens, we have to do double runs. That means students, when it's cold out, students are gonna be out. We're gonna have to figure out, we have to put out a robocall to let parents know, expect your child being picked up 30 minutes late, 40 minutes late, especially this time of year. We just, we need to notify parents. I hope it don't get to that. That's why I'm driving. We're using everyone we can to drive, so. Basically, that's it. There's no stage 4 yet.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh, yeah, and Brian Wedge. So now we have an extra driver. So I do want to thank him for, he offered that up, and hopefully we won't have to, go there, but if we do, he's willing, so.
Thank you. Moving on, update of the high school 5x5 schedule.
Mr. Bowers is going to come up and share that. Thought it would be a good time mid-year because this is the first year we've moved to the 5x5.
Good evening,
Do
Dan
you want
Bowers.
to sit up here?
Oh, I
More
can.
comfortable in the morning?
So the 5x5 is new this year, and it's been discussed and talked about long before I came on board. But the impetus behind it was to open up the course offerings, and just timing-wise, the way it worked out is actually short-term. It's benefiting us with COVID mitigation and recovering some credits that kids might have failed or not gotten last year due to COVID and in the semester before. So we've got kids in getting classes, making up credits, so that's beneficial. But like I said, in the long term, we want to be adding courses for students to choose some different offerings rather than the traditional ones. And I just wanted to let you know what the new courses were that we currently are in this year and have. We've got a foundational physics and a foundational chemistry, so we took that honors physics class that the freshmen had, that's very high level math, and took that semester. That's still going on, but we pulled down and made these 2 class offerings that are a quarter each for most of the freshmen who may not be as advanced with the math that you need to be for that other class. So that's been going well. We've got a Fundamentals of STEM, which is a quarter class that Jason Bellner's teaching in science, and that's open to all students, but the idea is it's geared toward freshmen. And then the course that the kids could move into next on that, even though there's no prerequisite for it, is an AP computer science class that Bethany Brenner's teaching, which we've got some kids in this year. Also, piano keyboarding class was offered. That's a quarter class. So we've got those new offerings that are currently running this year. And next year we're going to add in a mixed media, which is an art class, no prerequisites, so it's open for all the grades, which is excellent. A dystopian literature class, which is a semester class that just due to content stuff we're going to put for juniors and seniors. And then reading the movies was a class that was developed to coincide with critiquing movies as well as the screenplays or the novels and stuff that they're based off of. That's a quarter class open to all grades. And then introduction to theatrical improv or improvisation is new, and we're actually kind of speedlining it and moving it up to second semester because we just didn't have kids that were getting into the theater classes, so hopefully by having it this next semester, the kids will get in it and then word will get out and we'll kind of grow the program that way. So that's been good, and then hopefully will be good. The courses, the pluses have been that we've gone from 75-minute classes down to 65 now. I think maybe the adjustment period for the kids are, some of them in the surveys we got at the end of the first quarter said that, well, they got more homework now. Okay, that's because they have an extra class, so yeah, they were here last year, and they do. And for teachers, it's the adjustment of culling out what maybe might have been, they were able to get it last year or the years before under a 75 to 80-minute class. Now they got to pare it down, and that's kind of good because it helps them really drill down into what they really need to cover within the curriculum, and identify that and realize that they don't have the time to cover everything in there. So that's been beneficial, but I think that's also been an adjustment that they've made. And then just as another COVID mitigation piece, we are going to be adding the extended day program, which will start next month. We just need to get that worked out, coordinate with who's going to do it and the days we'll do it. It's usually a 3-day stay at the school for an hour and a half or so.
And that's something that's subsidized in part by that set aside amount in the ARP effort classroom. So.
And then we'll do, like we did last year, the extended year program in the summer, so 3 weeks in the summertime. Same type of thing. It's all geared towards credit recovery. And this year, within our 5-period schedule, because it's, the seniors, we didn't up their credits. They graduated with 23 credits. The juniors will graduate with 25, sophomores 27, and the freshmen currently will be at 30. But there is some wiggle room. We didn't get everything plugged in this year, so there are some spaces and study halls which we're turning into learning labs to move kids in who maybe failed the course and need to do credit recovery right then and there, or are failing a course and just need that extra supervision to get the work done rather than have a regular study hall in the CAF or in a classroom and, can sign up to the library. It's more hands-on, getting them to do that. So, am I coming back up after? What do you want to know?
I think I covered those numbers. I wanted Christmas to talk about COVID a little bit, but thanks to Dan and his staff and the teachers. I mean, this has been a collective work and putting everyone's good thinking together. And so seeing new students, you have to, that's important about soliciting student interest and not only about the content of it, but how they want to spend time in their day. It's like the lesson of working out. They are the population we serve. So thank you.
I didn't know if we were going to cover other stuff. Or if I was just going to our training workshop on Monday.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, you forgot to bring that part, unless there are questions at the end.
No, I just want to say it is kind of nice to see classes being brought back, or brought back into to be provided for the kids compared to where it was when I was in high school and watching everything get cut away.
Yeah. The program of studies you have, those are the first copies. That's what we'll be getting out to. We're going to have 8th grade parent night on February 9th and get that started. And we plan to have the individual sign-ups, the counselors meeting with the 8th graders the week before February break and the week after. So by that second full week in March, we should be geared up to start the scheduling process, which is the goal. And then we can get that done early in the spring and then get the schedules out to everybody, rather than, it seems to always get pushed back and, the summer, the school year closes and then we're mailing them out to people. So hopefully, with the adjustment, we met with the admin and the guidance counselors from the junior high and kind of came up with a plan on how to get this in a better way, quicker. Monday with our workshop day, we've got Brandon Baldwin coming in, who used to teach in junior high, I believe. And he's with the Attorney General's office and is in charge of the Civil Rights Team Project. He's coming in to train the staff, geared towards making it a more welcoming environment and just to, get us thinking about the different clientele that we have and the perspectives that they have coming into the building and how we can make it more user-friendly and more welcoming. So that will be Monday, 8:30 to 11:30. It's a 3-hour training with him. And then the core content areas, math, English, science, social studies, has a New Year training for using the scores from the New Year test they took in the fall, and then helping to provide instruction based on those scores. And Pat Watts has set that up, so that's district-wide, but we needed to pull out and do a separate time just because of our morning training for that. And then the other teachers, the performing arts and art and music, they'll be working on their own in their rooms and whatnot. So it's a full day. And if I might, let's see. Just one final thing with our upcoming book study, Grading for Equity. We're going to be doing that later in February, and that's just a dialogue, and it's a real philosophical shift from traditional grading and what grades are used for and how they can not necessarily help with the learning, but actually undercut it. So that should be a good discussion because, we're all used to the traditional 0 to 100, A, B, C, D, 85 is a B minus or B or whatever. But it gets into like, do you ding them with a 0 for a homework grade? Just get you thinking on the other side of things. Me, I know as a student, I was never motivated by that stuff. Others I knew were. But I took my lumps and here I am. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that because it will be a good discussion. Any questions, anything you can help with?
The only question I had, and maybe I heard it wrong, but I think you said that there was, when you talk about the introduction to theatrical improv, you said that there was lower interest in theater right now. Is that like?
It's just the way it's just the kids get into tracks, even though we don't intend to build tracks into the system, and they don't have it's between getting into that or they're in an AP, so they don't have room to get into that stuff. So we're going with a smaller course. We're going with a smaller size class to hopefully spur the interest so the word gets out, because next year's freshmen, the 8th graders coming in, they're going to have much more opportunities within their schedule built in. Right now, the seniors are pretty much tapped out. The juniors are pretty much tapped out with, trying something new. They're looking at the end of the road. So, thank you for asking that question, because we do have a play going on. Tonight's the first show. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Little Shop of Horrors, and then Saturday, 2 and 7. So, and they've got masks. The clear ones, though, that you can visualize and see. So, yeah, thanks for that. All right.
And that is important to note, that the 5x5 kids is just like being in a situation where you're having to, as a student, make a choice between career and technical education, which will take up half of your day, and trying to fit that into the rest of it. So it's another thing that the 5x5 does, is give, more of those opportunities. But, it's been a lot of work and years in the making. We switched to the 4x4 24 years ago, 23 years ago, something like that. So it was time to try something different to serve our kids. So, and I'm just going to ask Mr. Boynton, would you be willing to just share a little bit about the 24th, please? Yeah.
Good evening. So on the 24th, next Monday, we have a number of things going on. The morning session I'll be working on our school improvement plans, some of our goals. So teachers will be working individually in their rooms, as well as some of their colleagues to work on completing the midway point of our school goals. About midway through the morning, as Mr. Bowers talked about, our ELA, our math, our social studies and science teachers will be it's a new training, applying responsive planning for instruction, so interpreting the data and applying it to their instruction in their classrooms across the content areas, ELA, math, social studies, and science. So that'll be for about 2 hours in the middle of the day, and then the afternoon will be spent working in content area groups, developing more planning, adjusting as they need to. So it'll be a full day of work for our teachers, but a good day of work. As Mrs. Hurstman mentioned earlier about our numbers, as far as absences of teachers, yesterday we had 8 teachers out, and it was pretty near the tipping point for us. But we have amazing staff that covers for others during their playing periods. They give up their playing periods. They're covering for others. So we're able to make the day flow. Also some thanks to Mrs. Reynolds, our assistant principal, and our secretaries, Ms. Boudreau and Mrs. Rhines, for coordinating all the schedules, because it's a block here, a block here, a block there. And teachers are stepping up, and they're doing an amazing job filling in for teachers who aren't there. We're limited on subs. I think we have 3 in our building yesterday for 8 teachers. And I stepped in a couple social studies classes, which is great for me. It was a fun time to step in and do a little social studies. That's what I used to teach. But hopefully it's not a regular thing. But we managed it, and the teachers did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Webb is the appointed, anointed spokesperson for the elementary principals.
Yes, good evening. I'll start with the COVID, our response to staffing. And I know the other elementary schools we all have similar obstacles each morning, where at Benton, it's normal for us to have about 10 to 21 positions that are unfilled, the staff out being sick or with COVID. So each morning, Mrs. Blaze does logistical gymnastics, is kind of what I call it, every morning. And so she's really starting about 6 o'clock, trying to figure out ways to make sure that we move staff around so at least students are being supervised. We aren't able to provide a lot of services as a result of that, but we're at least able to stay open and supervise the students. So that's a huge obstacle. And then throughout the day, staff have to go home because they're sick or they have different symptoms. So we're constantly just adjusting, and the staff in the school are very, very flexible. And one thing Ms. Blaze was just mentioning the other day was how appreciative she is. Like, if she's, she's dreading every time she gets on the intercom saying, so-and-so, I need you to call the office, they're probably cringing because we need their help to cover a lunch duty or recess. But the staff are always very flexible and saying, yes, what can I do to help? Or if we make an announcement, we need 2 people that can move or their schedule around to cover lunch duty. We always get those 2 or 3 people that call down to the office and say, hey, I can help. So that's the way we're making it work. For the elementary workshop day on Monday, we're really excited about it. And similar to what Mr. Boynton had talked about in the morning, it's the NWA training, and it's a responsive planning piece. So it's kind of taking everything that they've learned and then applying the reports and the data to planning for small group instruction. So that's going to be the morning, and all the teachers will be in their respective buildings. And then after lunch, we're going to bring everybody to Benton. They're going to start the afternoon working as grade level teams for our curriculum committee work. So each grade level is going to be working for their grade level curriculum for mathematics. And then the last part of the afternoon, we're going to spend some professional development time on classroom management tools. We had sent a survey earlier in the year about what are some professional development needs of staff, and I know at Benton specifically, we have a lot of newer teachers, and first, second, or third year teaching, and we haven't been able to, the last few years, provide a lot of professional development around that. So we're going to be doing some a variety of classes. It's Fred Jones is the person that his products that we're using, and things like praise, prompt, and leave. Calm. Using like a calm to strength, developing rules, routines, and standards, and similar things like that. So that's how we're going to spend the rest of our afternoon. And so we're really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great, productive workshop day. Any questions? All right,
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to first readings. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of policy EBCA, Comprehensive Health and Safety Emergency Management Plan, as presented by the Policy Committee?
So moved.
It's been moved by Terry, seconded by Melissa, to approve the first reading of the policy EBCA, Comprehensive Health and Safety Emergency Management Plan, as presented by the Policy Committee. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Coming with that was a letter, which I'm not sure what the intent of the letter was, but attached to the policy or in our package anyway was a letter, and the last paragraph in that letter I found very confusing, and I just think maybe we could rewrite that to be.
Well, it's not the policy. This is what we're going to publish for what's accessible.
Yeah,
to
what's the
public.
purpose of that, Roberta? Maybe that would clarify it.
Just because I think it's important information to be out there, and it's what the statute provides that it's allowable.
Yeah.
But that is, it's not part of the policy you need to adopt, and we can continue
Right,
to work on the
so are you
document.
saying we shouldn't need, I don't need to discuss that because it's
No,
not?
I'm happy to hear what your
Yeah,
suggestions are.
I'm just saying that somebody added an awful lot to that first, or the paragraph on the second page of that, kind of E. Like I said, it almost contradicts itself in a couple of places to me. And I find in an emergency situation, that would be really clear.
Well, part of that, and I get the two parts, and it's one of the provisions in the statute for what's accessible and what we need to include is a chain of command. And that's why there are two different scenarios. You have an emergent, immediate situation in a school that's addressed very immediately by the school administrator, and it's often handed off to, say, law enforcement when they arrive. I understand what you're saying about the redundancy of that, but chain of command beginning with the superintendent. And this is about, so you have a law enforcement response, first responders, and there is a site where communications happen and come out of as a situation evolves and is resolved, hopefully. So that's the initial part there. Public safety officials assume the role. And in any situation, there's the authority of the school unit, but as soon as law enforcement arrives, they take that over. And we are really about messaging and communicating to families and to the public.
Is there somewhere, for example, it says here the law enforcement commander in this paragraph, for example, is there somewhere that says who that is?
No, that would depend on who arrives. So it's and it's in the safety plan. It's a protocol. So there's an incident command center, and it depends on which agency arrives. And so local law enforcement arrives, but then the state police arrive, and the state police might tend to take over a situation given the circumstance. But the incident command post is something different, usually delegated within the rank of an agency, whatever that might be. So, for example, today I met with the sheriff and the lieutenant, and the sheriff, in command, but might delegate that role of incident command to a deputy or a lieutenant. Don't know. So I guess it depends on who's here.
Yep, and I know it's usually the senior one there, but again, it's a little confusing when you have 3 or 4 different agencies.
Right, and we would lose, we abdicate authority in those situations. Abdicate is probably not a proper word but for it, but, you know, for example, we've had a bomb threat here, I think 15 years ago. And we had our crisis response team as school administration, but as soon as the state police arrived with their team, they took over, and the chain of command left us and was transferred to an agency outside of ourselves.
Okay.
But we can talk. You can share with me some suggestions. You have
Yeah,
a copy of that.
we can do that, yeah.
All right.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None, 0. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of policy JKE, expulsion of students, as presented by the policy committee? Been moved by Heather, second by Ray, to approve the first reading of policy JKE, expulsion of students, as presented by the policy committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 9, 0, 0. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of policy JKE-R, expulsion, hearing, and re-entry guidelines as presented by the policy committee? It's been moved by Melissa and seconded by Neil to approve the first reading of policy JKE-R, expulsion, hearing, and re-entry guidelines. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None. 0. Moving on, there are no resignations, there are no appointments. Committee reports.
Chair isn't here tonight for the finance
Right.
and facilities.
Is there anything from the building committee?
Yes,
Okay.
we can talk about that, and I'll include that in my superintendent's report. I'll roll all
Okay.
that together. Okay, because,
So- Finance and Facilities Committee met this evening. The 279, which is our state funding, has been released. And we discussed that, and we also discussed and went over
The proposal for the restructuring of our high school gymnasium.
And I think that was pretty much it for finance and facilities. The 279 took a lot of time.
there were some updates on that.
Yeah. And that was it for that. So superintendent's report.
Superintendent's report, building committee report, just to talk, first of all, aside from the building committee's work, I wanted to share with the board that the state has awarded the school district in a preliminary way. We'd applied for a pre-K expansion grant and were awarded course, with our funding leveraged it. This also worked toward expanding the sections of our pre-K program. In your packet, we have those enrollment numbers on the sheet that covers all the grade level enrollments in all the school buildings. So right now we have 51 students enrolled in our pre-K program that we operate with our partner KBCAP, and that is also our agreement with them. That agency is subsidized with Title I money. So we have expanded our sites to offer pre-K at Albion. We have 11 students at that site. In Clinton, we have 10 students, so there's a section in each site. And right now, we have 30 students at Fairfield Primary as of when this snapshot was taken on December 22nd for our enrollments. This grant, this opportunity is meant to support. Public schools are not required to offer pre-K, and we have a long history of offering that programming, again, with our partners and some federal monies and supporting that. But we're hopeful future-wise that we have universal pre-K opportunity for our students, and part of our construction process accounts for that possibility. So what this would subsidize is a couple other sections of it if we're able to get our enrollment back up there, because one of the other things that has happened is our pre-K enrollment is dropped. We had 60 plus children a few years back just at the Fairfield Primary School. So we would have to bring that enrollment up, so it would be an expansion of hopefully, we can restore status of where we're at. We're also offering, full day programming, and that is also a difference maker. We're able to offer that later, announce that later this school year, but we're also hopeful that there would be more families interested in accessing the programming if they knew sooner that it was all day. So we're looking at that. We're in the early stages. The governor's going to release an announcement of the schools that were awarded this. And there weren't many. I don't know about how many applied, but we are one of the few. So it's a terrific opportunity. And thanks to our principals and KBCAP and our assistant superintendent for their work on submitting this. So that's some information about that possibility. And I wanted to also mention building committee met for this meeting and talked about just preparation for the January 26th public hearing for site selection, site review. And I've sent you a copy of that graphic that we have published on our website about where we are in the process. And we're very early on, so there are 2 public hearings that need to occur before we get to referendum. One relates to site selection, and one will relate to concept design. And this meeting brings us to site selection. So we have settled on a property that is adjacent to the Benton Elementary School. It meets the requirements that the Maine Department of Education has set forth. As a reminder, the state is subsidizing this project. This is a state-funded project. So on Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the gym here, the public will have a chance to hear from our architect, CHA, Kathy Kogan, who was presented to this board on several occasions, and Alan Cunningham, who was the principal architect for Kathy's project manager and an architect. And also civil engineer Andy Johnston will be here, who has really done all the groundwork, if you will, and reports on testing and the suitability of the site, in addition to, its proximity to central location in the district, geographic central location. The state very much likes to see a magnet site, so, we have that in there, so we work with the complex for efficiencies. But there will be a lot of important information for the public to hear move through the paces. It seems like we've been working on this once the department named those schools. And a reminder, we're number one on a list of 74 for one school, and the state likes to help school units with the other applications that landed on in the queue. But you know, we've gone through the paces of CHA studying our facilities again that the state requires. The board heard that assessment in December of 2020. The board also heard the recommendations of CHA and the building committee to reload Benton and have a 3-6 build and explore that as an option. And we've done that, and also the point where's the building going to go that would be suitable and serve the district well. So there are lots of steps that have been part of this process. And again, we're very early on in that very broad timeline of events that need to occur. But we're on track, and it's an exciting time. So I hope that the board will share this information with the community. I did want to just remind you, I sent out a bulk mailing to all the residents in our towns. Everyone received that. We pushed a flyer up on our website. It's gone to the individual school sites. Principals have worked with PTOs and those organizations to get that information out. We've taken out a couple of ads in the newspaper, in the Sentinel, and public notice published on January 12th. Another one's going to run this weekend on the 20th. And I am going to send flyers home again with children, so it's in the forefront. Encouraging people to come here and, build some excitement for, again, I keep saying it, it's a gift. It's a terrific opportunity, and one that we really need as we look at, aging facilities and how we're going to operate and offer something that's state-of-the-art, but attracting people to MSAD 49, which is an outstanding school system. We have great staff here, but I think the chance to work out of a building designed for now is important and vital. So we're doing our best to spread the word, and we need everyone's help and participation in the process. Thank you. Or anything to add from the building committee?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Is there, moving on to other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Then moved by Ray, second by Roy, to adjourn.